My name is Justice Bawole. I am from Ghana. I studied in the IDPM, then now Global Development Institute, for a PhD in Development Policy and Management. I entered in 2010 of September, and I finished in September 2013. I've since gone back to the University of Ghana, where I previously worked as a lecturer in the Department of Public Administration, which is within the business school. I think that a number of reasons. When I finished my MPhil studies in Ghana, I applied to the University of Manchester, then IDPM, and wanted one of the professors to supervise me, but I think my topic was not exciting for him. And so I had to stay a few more years and to reapply, and this time not only to the University of Manchester, but to other universities. Incidentally, I got admission in 3 universities: Success, Bristol, and then University of Manchester. And I had to look up to see what the rankings were. I saw the University of Manchester was a great one, a measure of 2 big universities. So for me, it was exciting. And then too, I realized that the faculty members, the lecturers here, had a lot of developing country experience. And as somebody who was coming from a developing country, I thought that I needed people who understood the context that I came from. And of course, will be able to guide me in the kind of work that I did. And so the faculty and the very strong research background and their research focusing on developing countries was actually for me a deciding factor. And then when I entered here, I saw that it was even much more than what I thought. So the decision for me was the faculty and then the rank of the university, especially faculty that had experience in developing countries. I started off as a self-funding PhD student, and for the first term, that's from September to December, I spent most of the time thinking about where to get the next tranche of fees to come from. But luckily, I went back to Ghana in December of 2010, and I got the government through the Ghana Education Trust Fund to offer me a scholarship. And so I came back with that scholarship, and that freed me from thinking, 1, and 2, it freed me from wanting to do work. And so I spent my time actually writing articles if I weren't working on my PhD. And that helped me. So by the time that I finished the PhD in 3 years, I had published about 10 articles, and that gave me the opportunity to go back to my former job, and immediately got promoted to the rank of senior lecturer. So when I finished in September of 2013, September 2013 I finished, and because during my period here, I got a lot of experience working with experienced faculty and researchers. It helped me. I remember that when I first entered here, my first meeting with my supervisor, Dr. Fahad, he told me, he says, most guys that come into the University of Manchester will finish a PhD, will get a PhD. But I want you to get something more than a PhD. And that really struck me. So I started thinking about how I was going to become a bit different from others. And that was why when I had my funding and didn't need to work, I spent all my time wanting to make a difference through research. So my Fridays and Saturdays were almost always used for writing articles. And I ended up with at least 10 articles by the time that I was done. And my university required that you had at least 10 articles to be promoted to senior lecturer. So the experience that I got here, the capacity that I developed here, the collaboration with faculty, and the articles that came up were the things that immediately gave me the opportunity to meet the requirement that my university was looking for. And so when I put in the application, I got promoted to the rank of senior lecturer. So the experience in Manchester was such a catalytic experience that it didn't just give me a PhD, but it also gave me, capacity to publish, and I published and then got promoted to senior lecturer. Now, the most exciting part of it is that when I got promoted to senior lecturer, 8 months after that, that is the August of 2014, my head of department got appointed to another university, and we had to appoint a new head of department. And at the time, I was the only senior lecturer. So you would understand what the publication and the experience here did for me, because otherwise I would have queued up wanting to be promoted to senior lecturer, but I was already promoted to senior lecturer. So when it came up that they had to look for a new head of department, I was the only one that was the highest in rank. And so I was automatically promoted to become the head of department. And I've since served the department 2 years as head of department, and I just got my contract as head of department extended for another 2 years. So between now and 2018, I'm going to be to continue to be a head of department. And I'm happy that that was not just it, but there were also a couple of colleagues who were studying here in Manchester who were from Ghana. What I did was that as soon as I became head of department, I tried to use that connection to get all of those brilliant guys to join the department as faculty members. And we are doing quite a lot of interesting things, sometimes in collaboration with the University of Manchester. So that is the extent to which my degree in Manchester has helped. I should say I'm excited because becoming the head of department allows you to sit on all the big committees and boards in the university. And as a career lecturer, professor, I'm hoping that that is going to be something that I can use in future to help me to become the kind of professor I want to be. So Manchester has been good, and I talk about it everywhere I go. In Manchester, and I've been coming to Manchester since I finished. For the past 3 years, I come and give a couple of lectures to postgraduate students. So this year I have come and I am giving 7 lectures to 7 different classes on different aspects of development management and international development. For example, I've spoken to students about local development actors. I've spoken to students about spirituality in human resource management. I've spoken to students on organizational development. And I'm going to speak to students this week on constitutions and the law and how that affects HR management in developing context and all of that. And in addition to the teaching, I also do collaborative research with my former supervisors and other colleagues. And I'm happy to say that we just published a book on development management, theory and practice by Rutledge. And I should say 2 days ago we had another meeting and we are thinking about another book project. This time we want to look at governance practices in NGOs, local NGOs in Africa. And so that's the next project that I'm working on. So perhaps I'm going to keep coming every year until that project is also realized. Well, I say the rain keeps us, you never get to be able to predict the University of the rain in Manchester. So I know some friends call it Rainchester. So we say but in terms of the University of Manchester, I think a number of things. The faculty are extremely friendly. There was no distinction between a faculty member and a PhD student. So they treated us as colleagues. They were very friendly. So they gave us all the support that we needed in terms of academics, but also they gave us a lot of social support. I remember that my wife had just delivered. My baby was 3 months. My last born was 3 months when I came to the University of Manchester. And Fahad was almost always concerned about the fact that I had left my kids back home. And so he would often ask me how they were doing and was careful. And any time that I was going back to Ghana, he would often give me a little gift to give to the little girl. So that kind of bond and friendship that we had with the faculty was extremely cool. So that's one of the great memories that I have with the University of Manchester. The other one has to do with the kind of infrastructure that we enjoyed. Manchester invests a lot in resources, academic resources, so almost always you had resources that you needed to be able to make your work go well. If you had problems with computers and you reported it, it was promptly responded to and fixed. And so you didn't have need in terms of the resources you needed to be able to do your work. So that was also very handy for us. And I keep, when I have problems in Ghana, I make reference to it and I say, this can happen in Manchester, because in Manchester you have whatever you want to be able to work well. Well, I think that for many of us who come to Manchester, we come with different motives, but in the end, everybody wants to have a fulfilling career after Manchester. And so I say that Manchester is noted for uniqueness in a number of things. And when I came, I decided that I wanted to be able to identify with a particular uniqueness of the University of Manchester. And the uniqueness that I thought I wanted to identify with was the uniqueness of capacity of research, to be able to do good research. So by the time that I finished, I was able to show off myself that I have been trained in the University of Manchester, and it was not difficult for me to be able to get promoted. And so I think that what colleagues who are currently working here for their PhD should do is to try and couch out a certain uniqueness that they want to be tagged with from Manchester. And once that you can show off that, and I implore them to show that off, because the University of Manchester is a global brand. So show that off to people, and you will find that there will be a lot of employers who will be willing to employ you. So for those that are here, that's what I would say. For those that are willing to or wanting a place to study, I think that if you were to give up the University of Manchester, you will not have a lot of other universities that actually serve as a melting pot of the global environment. You come to the University of Manchester and you can meet all sorts of people. And apart from meeting all sorts of people, you will meet a top-notch class of researchers who you can affiliate with, who will not, out of their accomplishment, look down upon you, but will be those people who will still want to associate with you, will have a chat with you, stop by at a coffee place with you, and say a word or two to you and find out how you are doing and all of that. So the University of Manchester really has this tradition that I think anybody who is looking up to study here should be looking up for. Since leaving here, I have tried to make sure that I don't leave a gap. So when I left that very first year, I brought somebody who was a former student of my university to start his PhD. He's in his third year now. The year after, I brought another student of mine that I taught who is in his second year now. And then this year, I brought in my teaching assistant, who had been my teaching assistant for 2 years. He's just started his PhD here. So for the past 3 years, every year, I brought somebody to University of Manchester to take my place. And if it were not something that I'm proud of, I would never let somebody else come. So I think that I need to be able to say that the University of Manchester has this, the Porter principle of molding people to go out there and be global icons. And I am proud to be who I am now. And so I think that Manchester has played a key role in this. I live here on Friday, and I go to the Georgia State University into the Andrew Young School of Public Policy, because I'm in public administration, and I'll be giving a couple of lectures to students and to PhD students there and to faculty there, and to have a couple of meetings. And then from there I come to Washington to have some conference meetings and all of that. So I see myself now going everywhere in the world, because Manchester didn't limit me. It gave me that exposure that makes me able to compete with everybody else from everywhere else in the world, and to be able to say that I am amongst the top. So Manchester is a place to study.